I'm sure they thought I had a bottle of nitrous or something in the back.
We've got to roll as far as we can. I'm not pushing this thing.
Hey, please work, please work, please work, please work.
It was full legal. Welcome to another Stay Tuned podcast. On today's podcast, it's a little bit different, something special to me. I have two very close friends coming in and we're talking about tuning. These two guys are Josh Taylor and Matt Ashley. Josh Taylor has been with Just Autos for the last 6 years. This guy has huge amounts of passion for tuning. He eats, sleeps it. You know, I can ring Joshy any time in the night or day and he just loves talking about tuning and loves everything about it. And then we have Matt Ashley, who I'm business partners with in a company called Easy Tune. This company, you know, develops software with reverse engineering and a whole lot of range of different things, which we'll touch on today as well. And Matt has an awesome background in tuning and again, huge passion for it. So today's going to be a very exciting time for me because this is what I love to talk about is tuning. So yeah, get ready and stay tuned. Josh, Matt, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, pretty good.
All right, so we're going to start off with Josh. Obviously, we have history from years ago. So it'd be really interesting if you tell the viewers, you know, where you started from and how you got to where you are today.
Righto. Yeah, it is going back a while now, probably about 19 years. I started working at a Holden dealership. I actually started doing a work experience one day a week. And funny enough, our year coordinator had left the time and we got a new one and she just assumed I was doing a school-based traineeship. So I got 6 months out of that and then they asked me how my traineeship was going and I said, traineeship? I'm still doing work experience. So that's when they said, well, the system's stuffed up here somewhat.
So pretty much forced you into being a mechanic pretty much.
You have to do something or come back to school. So
yeah,
that's when I hit them up for a apprenticeship at the time and started leaving school was probably the best thing to do. I think I was 16 at the time. Pretty lucky with the places I worked. I worked at a Subaru dealership, but
Subaru, I feel sorry for you, but yeah.
Plenty of motors, plenty of gearboxes. I had mates there that did a fair bit of circuit racing and drag racing, so it was right up my alley. And eventually managed to get a job down in Brisbane at East Coast Customs.
Yeah, so with Rob and Ben, is
that
right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's the time that you met Matt. Was that be right around that sort of time as well, Matty?
Josh started after, well and truly after I was there, and that's how we first met.
Yep, and then you got pushed into tuning, didn't you?
No, I pushed myself into tuning. I'd always had a play here and there, and I'd always hassle Matt, and he'd be staying back, and I'd stay back nights, and I'd try to pick up as much as I could.
All of a sudden it was, I was in the seat for 3 or 4 hours after work and all of a sudden I had Josh next to me for 3 or 4 hours after work every day watching over everything I was doing and learning. And
after, probably 3 years, Matt ended up leaving and going to work elsewhere. And I remember driving home one night and Rob gave me a call. He said, hey, how would you like to slide into the tuning position and I'll train you up. So I was over the moon with that, doing a heap of blown Commodores, blown Mustangs, heap of import stuff, which was, awesome. And then roll forward.
And here we are.
Yeah,
and here
long
we
way
are.
Down the track.
Okay, so Matty, you've got an interesting story, so tell me where you started from and what you got you to where we are today with, I guess, Easy Tune.
Yeah, well, so my story is not quite the same as Josh's. I don't have a mechanical background or anything like that. All of my stuff is self-taught.
Yep.
I started back in 2010 now, so it would have been 14 years ago. A friend of mine got his Evo 10 tuned by a local workshop and it wasn't actually the best, shall we say.
Yeah.
At the time, there was a lot of information online on, you know, how to read the files out of these cars and how to tune them and all the rest of it. And we started investigating options on, you know, who else locally we could get to do it.
Yeah.
And we couldn't really find anybody. So we decided to buy the hardware and we shipped the tune off to AMS in the States and said, can you guys have a look at this? You know, is there a reason that this car runs so poorly and was so inconsistent? And they basically came back to us and said, whoever did this shouldn't be tuning. And it was horrible and we needed to fix it. So we found a guy who actually wrote the Evo 10 tuning guide down in New South Wales
Yep.
to started remote tuning the car for us. And we kind of got a month into it, late nights on the highway and doing all the stuff we shouldn't have been to tune
Trying
the
to
car. And it got to the point where he actually stopped replying. We're kind of halfway through tuning this thing and I'm looking at it all and going, this actually isn't too bad. Like, it's not difficult to understand. Like, it's the logic behind it all is very simple.
Yeah.
So we then spent the next 3 months on the road at night, basically me learning how to tune an Evo 10 on my mate's car.
And we can all understand, I think we've all done it over the years, how extremely hard that is to have a laptop in the passenger seat or on your lap and try and drive a car at somewhat, load to be able to get the results that you need to see on your data logger, and how difficult that is to still maintain a straight line on the road and everything else in between. So
yeah, definitely.
There's a huge amount of risk with it. And,
For sure, I'm glad he was driving because I was trying to watch the laptop live, which obviously I've learnt these days you can't do if you're driving.
Yeah.
You don't want to glance down at, speeds that we shouldn't be doing on the public road and look back up again and you're in a fence or a tree or something.
Oh, so for sure, yeah.
It's still very unnerving sitting in a passenger seat while the car's moving that quickly and you're staring at a laptop screen going, please don't break.
Yeah.
But that was the start of it all. And then I started to do, a few more Evo 10s. And then it was, at the time I was working in a small engine shop, managing the place and all the rest of it. So I wasn't doing anything in terms of, mechanical, so to speak. It was purely business based.
Yep.
So then obviously a role came up at East Coast.
Yep.
Obviously Rob and Ben, who had actually built my cars previously.
Yes.
Wanted a manager for the shop basically. And I'm like, oh, geez, this is awesome. It's a bit of a pay cut, but it's something that, I have a big passion for cars and all the rest of it. Started managing the shop and was constantly peering over Rob's shoulder, seeing what he was doing. He had given me a few tips and tricks when I was doing the Evo 10 as to his methodology and all the rest of it in tuning. But the more I worked there, the more I was over Rob's shoulder and the more I started to wear him down on, hey, I want to do this, instead of you. And he started by teaching me Commodores and we moved into aftermarket ECUs. I then put an aftermarket ECU on my Honda at the time and learnt to tune that.
Yep.
I think after about a year and a half of me being there, I was on the dyno full time.
Yeah.
Then I basically started my own business, which I did for about, I think it was 5 years in the end.
Yeah.
And hit up Josh and said, hey, this is what I'm doing, because we still had a great relationship at that point, still talking all the time and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And he said, hey, can you have a look at this Toyota file for me and see if you can find a few things in there? I said, well, why not? Started digging around and we found a few things, and that's obviously when I started talking to you as well then, because it's like, hey, we can actually probably do something here and it's beneficial for both of us. At the time I was just interested in learning.
Yep.
So I was sitting at home till all hours of the night ripping these files apart, trying to figure out what's what. And with Toyota there's no guides or anything, all that sort of stuff. Or
I guess for people that don't really understand, it's when we extract a file from an ECU, there is no manual, there's no direction of what is where and what it's labeled and what it is.
Yeah, not in Toyota anyway.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into understanding, and even to this day we're learning every day with all the complexities of the factory ECU and what it can do. So yeah, I guess then from there it was a case of we started working on a side project and stuff where I was kind of managing the project and all the rest of it externally to my business at the time. And it got to the point where that got too busy for me to continue doing my daily job. And then now we're here at this point where it's 5 days a week of project management and reverse engineering and all the
building
fun stuff.
files and having Josh ask me why 6 times a day that I can't answer.
Yeah. I think it was interesting. We did obviously the video with the drag race with all the other cars that were down at Lakeside, obviously a few months ago. A lot of people put some comments and they don't quite believe what's gone on and all the trickery around it and so forth. And I was trying to make it as clear as possible is that, we definitely had an advantage that day purely because it was a hot day. We're a diesel. Obviously, when you have a petrol on a racetrack that is forced induction and you're running extremely hot temps, pull a lot of timing out. So a car that made maybe, let's say, 500 horsepower probably isn't making 500 horsepower on an extremely hot day.
I still, to this day, would not have believed that video if I wasn't standing there and watching it with my own two eyes. And it's quite funny watching a blown V8 sit behind a 300 series. I thought there was no way in hell you were going to beat that patrol.
To be honest, before we went, Joshy was looking at me coming into the office and I'm writing all these stupid numbers on the board and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to work out the power weight ratio of all these cars because
the amount of
I'm freaking out
messages.
here. I'm thinking we're going to lose. Like, there's no way we're going to win here. These cars make so much more power than me. You know, like we're talking another 100 horsepower. And I'm like, how is this going to be possible? I think I was at one stage there. I'm like, I don't even know how we're going to go up against a Ram. Like, you know, that was something that was really concerning until we did a little sneaky race on, you know, the way down just to see the power difference between the two cars. And it was full legal.
In Mexico.
In Mexico. It was just something that straight away we realised that the 300 series had huge potential. It definitely was chalk and cheese. I was like, oh, yeah, look, there definitely is power.
Yeah, I always knew it.
Like the 300 series is the animal. Like, I still believe it's, you know, fantastic, and the power that those cars produce is unbelievable. I think when we started to work out a lot of the fueling strategies and stuff around it, and we started to make some power, and I think it all came together, we're like, holy dooly, this thing, like, we were talking about it and just going, man, these can make
the
some
amount of
power.
0 to 100 draggy slips that I got sent from the side of the highway, because it's like, do you think this will be fast enough?
And yeah,
we need more.
I was searching through all the other cars out there to see what they do, and you know, I was coming back. I'm like, oh, the car's quick. And there's something that the videos didn't really show is that obviously all those launches where we're using launch control, which is part of our multi-mapping, and to stall the car up to, you know, that 2,500 RPM, and then we launch off that. We pretty much launched one car length nearly in front of every car launching off. And I think patrols aren't real good for launching to start with. That's one thing that they sort of lack with. And I don't think the Raptor was that good either off the launch. But the interesting, I think I was speaking to Kent from High Talk, he's like, look, man, he goes, that was pretty impressive. And he goes, what I was confused about is that I thought I was going to wheel you in the back end. But he goes, but you were pulling from me. And he goes, that's impressive, you know.
Well, I still remember you telling me and sending me messages going, this 0 to 100 was with a 2.4 launch control. This was with 2,500. This was 2.6. And
Yep.
you kept pushing it up and the car just kept getting faster and faster.
Yeah.
Until the point that you actually went slower because you gave it way too much launch control.
Yeah. And I guess it's not about trying to get a car to be fast from a drag car application. I guess it was an easy way for us to showcase truly how much power a small little diesel engine can, and it can sort of compete against the big boys as far as, you know, a touring sort of setup.
But it's not even just against the four-wheel drives. What if we have a customer that went to the track and did one of the
Yeah, we
days?
put a stage one file on Alan from AK Racing's 300 series, and he was literally racing WRXs and everything on track in his 300 series.
I guess the thing is here is that no one really will believe until they see, and I think it'll just take years down the track where people start to see these cars and go, wow, they are impressive. Like, we know what they go like. And I think the first time we actually drove one that had some power up tuning, we were like gobsmacked. I think we were like, hey, why would you have a 200 series? Like, it's just chalk and cheese.
The 10 speed helps as well.
Yeah.
You've got all this power up top and it keeps it in the power band.
So, and I mean, that day was interesting in the fact that we did back-to-back runs. Like, I think we probably would have done, I don't know, maybe 25 back-to-back runs on that day in that heat. So we were up to temp. There was no cooling down. And yeah, to tell you the truth, I was really nervous. And that video, we didn't expect the outcome. We expected to be mid-pack, and we did not expect to win. But it just goes to show a lot of those heavier petrols, as much as they're tuned by, you know, reputable companies, and they did really well. I think it's hats off to them to have those cars going around those tracks on those days without, you know, any engine lights or limp modes or no problems. Then they were still up there in those temps. But it just showcases how the diesel did help in those hot conditions.
Even they were in disbelief sitting there talking to the guys while everyone else was out on track. They're just shaking shaking their heads.
Sounds like we need to do a winter one.
Yeah, do a winter one. That will be interesting, actually. We should probably look at doing something else like that. So.
I guess the other thing that we haven't really touched on there is that we saw how good the heat exchanger worked.
Yeah, well, that was one thing that was interesting because I think it was AK. Their 300 series didn't have a heat exchanger in at the time, and it was in standard form. And it was really interesting. The first run that they did, it was quick.
Walked to the patrol.
It was funny that it come back round for a second run and it just lost all of its power. And it was just the patrol beat it and then patrol beat it. And the next minute patrol was beating it left, right and centre. So
you see that on the dyno though. You get your one good pull
one
out
run
of it.
and the next minute the power dramatically drops off. Putting the heat exchanger in, it was amazing how that made consistency for us. Again, everyone always goes on about making more power. I guess it's all about consistency, and that proved on that day with running extra power. Obviously, our intake temps are a lot hotter than they are from factory, but to have the heat exchanger in there and to do a lot of back-to-backs, I would say that we were very consistent with every run that we did. I wouldn't say that we were, losing seconds, per that sort of eighth mile. It was very consistent where we were.
We tried to push the standard 300 further to make it beat the patrol, and it actually went backwards because of the temps.
The temps are too hot, that's right.
Yeah.
So I guess, interesting video. Obviously, we know the truth. We know how it all rolled out, and obviously what we've just spoken about is what it is.
I still doesn't make sense to me. You should not have beaten those cars.
I'm sure they thought I had a bottle of nitrous or something in the back. To be honest, I definitely thought about it on the way down. I'm like, do we need this? Like, we're going to get beaten here.
I really wish we had a GoPro in Kent's eyes the moment he let go of the brake and all of a sudden you were gone.
I think he definitely thought that, we got this.
It's hard to compare the diesel and the petrol numbers.
It is.
I'd love to have a petrol and a diesel making the same horsepower and then give them a run.
And weights, I think Kent was carrying more weight than me.
Of course,
well. I think he had a rear bar with a rear wheel on. We both had 35s, and I guess when you add it, there's probably another couple hundred kilos, if not more, on that car. So weight has a part.
Neither of them are drag cars.
No, exactly right.
I think a lot of people miss that as well.
Fun.
Yeah, it was just a bit of fun.
Yeah. So overall, good experiment. We'll have to be creative with our next one. I think it'd be great to maybe do something that includes towing, where we can put some trailers on and do maybe some racing with trailers.
It'll be interesting to see how the Tundra petrol goes up against the 300 series.
Look, that will be interesting, very interesting. I think at this stage, I like the power from the 300. The V6 that's in the Tundra, we've driven it, and it's got power. But I love diesel. I love that torque, and that's something that you tend to miss on a petrol. But you petrol boys, I don't know, you should probably
we'll get some flex.
hard. Josh should probably be in the middle.
The flex patch is already in the works for the Tundra, and we'll get some bigger injectors in there and all the rest of it. We'll turn it up.
Yep, that'll be good.
I'll try and change your mind.
I got to find something to race Ben from East Coast Customs in. We've got a little bit of a
banner going on.
Bit of a history there.
Yeah. He's trying to make his way up to number one driver. He's always been stuck in number two.
No, that's cool. So obviously we started our relationship around the sort of same time. And when we start to go back with what we're trying to do, I think we had some pretty interesting conversations. I think that's when we started talking about multi-mapping and so forth. And obviously the first car that we did some testing on was a DPF Model 200 series with the power button and doing some switching around that. And people don't understand when you've got a normal map laid out of what we do with a standard car, and then you grab one of our multi-mapping systems and you put it through. It is so more complex when you start looking through because you've got 6 tables of nearly every table that's in the ECS. It's so much going on.
That's the funny thing, right? Is we started with the whole dual map thing just off the power button.
It was challenging, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was obviously just 2 maps at that point, and we started off with just boost control and then just a few injection limiters, and then we were having a few issues with the maps being different sizes and a few other things. And I pretty quickly realised that we needed a more complete solution, so to speak. We need more maps. 2's not really enough. And that's when we grabbed the Haltech switches, the 12-position switches. And I spent, I think, my entire Christmas at that point with an ECU on the bench. And then we got to the point where I got the ECU to recognise the voltage input, and I'm like, sweet, let's make 12 maps.
I remember 12, and I was like, 12, are you kidding me? What am I going to do with 12 maps? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and then you guys were like, oh my God, there's so much here. And it's like, well, we can cut it down. And that's where the whole six maps came from, is it?
Yeah.
12 was just a bit too much, and we continued using the voltage switch at that point, and then obviously it naturally progressed from there as we're.
So my job got 6 times harder.
Poor Josh is sitting there with 12 maps in front of him and 12 different maps for everything. So not only did he have to tune the car once, he had to tune it at least 6 times to start with.
You couldn't just copy over tables either because we'd changed axes and everything. So they're all different table sizes. So it was a bit of a mission to do the first few. But after that, it became pretty easy.
When we start to talk about software, and that's something that I think Just Autos is pretty unique with our competitors out there with what we have, is that we run our own custom firmware in these ECUs, but it's also the software that's created around that. Can you give a really simple explanation into currently what you have to do to end up with creating, say, a multi-mapping function for a car without going too complex, because we can talk for hours on how complex.
Of course.
I don't want to sort of, bedazzle everyone with too much information because there's a lot there. But is there a shorter version that you can give us?
So the short version is basically we grab the firmware out of a car. Let's say, for example, the new 79 series Cruiser.
Yep.
We got that in. We ripped the firmware out of it. I put it into a reverse engineering program, and we start to look for all the maps that we used to tune the car to start with. Once it's tested on the bench and we're happy that it's not going to destroy an ECU, as I'll send it up to you guys to go, here you go, here's the new version and get ready to test. Obviously that brushes over some of the functionality and all the rest of it that we put into the firmware itself, but that's the basics of it, is we send it up to you guys and test it, and then I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs waiting for the message to go, it worked, we bricked it, or this is wrong, or I was driving up the road. I still remember when I was on the phone to both of you, and you were in the N80 and we did a new custom logging patch, and I'd missed a byte off the end of the patch, and you guys started the logging and the whole car died.
And we're like, Matt, what have you done?
Yeah, we're on the highway doing 110.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Clicked the space bar and the car turned off. And
yeah, and we're like, that was so wild. We actually started the car back up again and tried it again because we were so confused about it. But
I thought it was terminal. I was like, keep going, Matt. We've got to roll as far as we can. I'm not pushing this thing.
So there's definitely stuff like that where it's been interesting, and it's you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs going, please work, please work, please work, please work.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's not even just the multi-map stuff now. Even our single stuff's on our custom firmware and using our custom logging.
Oh, totally, without a doubt. I think it was interesting when we started going through the data logger. And Matt, you created a data logger for us. Obviously, we were data logging at that rate. I think it was, 5 hertz? And you roughly, and then you got us up to a data logging speed of around 60 hertz.
So the initial version 1 of the data logger was just a very simple system, which we quickly surpassed, and all of a sudden Josh and Matt can see fuel rail pressure at an alarmingly fast rate, and we found a few more problems with obviously the fuel control and
boost
control and a few other things that we couldn't see before. And poor Josh has had to spend quite a bit of time going back and double checking and triple check everything, because we can actually see everything now. And 60 hertz, if you're not aware, is 60 times a second.
Yeah.
So we went from getting a sample rate on, the fuel rail pressure at 5 times a second to being able to see it 60 times a second is huge.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I don't think, obviously it's hard for everyone that is not tuning to sort of listen what this gives you, but I guess what it gives us is the ability to do our job better. And that's what I think is really important out of having, the systems in place. And this is the thing, there was nothing on the market. We couldn't actually go and buy this stuff. We couldn't use a third-party tool for this. We had to create it ourselves. And the results were in the car. It drives so much better when you get these things on point. And not just one car, but all of them. I think even when we start to talk about aftermarket ECUs, they're awesome. But they're extremely easy because they're laid out for you onto how to work and how to make the car do what we need it to do. But when you don't have an instruction manual like the factory ECU, it takes time. And now the fact that we've got that information, I think having a fast data logger and having an understanding on how to use the program that we've created, that really gives us the edge to be able to perform.
Yeah, well, to put it in perspective, the data logger is as fast as some of the aftermarket ECUs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then if there's any functions I want, I'll hassle Matt nighttime. I'm like, man, I want this. If an aftermarket ECU can do this, you can definitely do this.
Yep.
You'll say, no, there's so much work, and keep hassling for a few weeks, and finally it'll come through.
That's a sucker.
Caves.
That's a sucker. He's like, nah, that'll take ages. And then the next minute I hear ding, and he's like, yeah, try this. And it's like, yeah, right, okay.
The problem is you pique my curiosity, because I don't like, and this is one thing I always talk to Josh, that's where he probably gets it from as well, is I don't like being told I can't do something.
Oh, for sure. I think that's in all of this is the fact that it's our competitive nature, and we always like to try and prove the point that it can be done. And I think there's something a little bit naughty about doing the factory ECU, that, it's hard. It's not the easy way. And I think that's what we all enjoy about it. I think if it was laid out and it was easy for us to do, I don't think we would be as interested as what we are in it. And so now we are currently using on a daily basis is obviously our website, which is EasyTune, our portal that handles all of our files as far as how we upload and, communicate with the ECU, has our data logging on there as well. I don't think, there's too many companies in the world that even in other systems have that running. So I think that's pretty special. So moving forward, that just gives us a lot more versatility with the cars, and also servicing the customers that, want certain things from us. It gives us huge reach and as far as what we can do there. What's in the pipeline? I think a lot of people will be asking, hey, we've already created multi-mapping and we've got our easy lock and a whole lot of range of other functions with our own flashes and so forth. We've done so much already, but what's the future hold and what are we working on? So do you think we should talk about some little things in detail?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the next generation of multi-map is going to be something. I know we always talk about game changers in this industry and how multi-mapping was a game changer to start with, but I truly think the progress that's been happening behind the scenes is another massive step forward.
And that's something that no one sees. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing we've been working on in the last couple of months, been bugging Josh almost every day. We've started rewriting Toyota's PID control for the boost control system on the 79 series.
Is amazing. It's really funny. So getting boost control to be on point with these things, we find a lot of cars come in, even for retunes and so forth, and that's the one thing that's terrible in them is their boost control. And to get it on point with the factory system, we find there is certain limitations with the PID control system.
The way Toyota wrote it just was very odd. It's just not ideal. So I went back to our roots, which is obviously, aftermarket ECUs, and I know I've written custom firmware for Motex and all the rest of it, and I know how the PID control works, and that it works phenomenally. So, hey, can we apply this to the Toyota stuff? So I wrote a patch, and Josh was extremely skeptical to start with. I said, "Here, just try it. Let's see what happens." And I think that's the first time you ever said that you saw cold boost control be on point.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing.
I think when I come in, I looked at the first run and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And Josh was like, yeah, man, that's cold. And that's 3 runs right there. And I'm like, holy fuck. And I was like, can you beat that out?
You can keep it in.
Oh, sweet, right. And I was like, I was definitely amazed by it because for the first time in my life, I've never seen the boost control to be within a KPA over the whole run of 3 separate different runs. And that's when I realised, hey, this is awesome. And I think that we're still obviously going through some testing with it. I think it's only been the last few weeks that we've really started to implement some of it.
It does make it a lot harder for us because we are at the pointy end with our power and torque. Like there's a lot of guys that are making 150 newton meters less on a remap, 200 newton meters less on a remap. Yeah,
definitely.
Which
that is
makes
a good point.
boost control a lot easier.
It definitely is.
But when you get to that pointy end and
it needs to be on point.
It's hard.
It definitely is.
Which then obviously the next thing we've started implementing is live tuning, which is something that's not natively supported by Toyota at all. That's something that Josh has been screaming for ages. So he doesn't have to sit there for all day tuning a VNT table.
It's pretty much the only thing left on the table when we start talk about aftermarket ECUs and OEM was live tuning. I think that's one of the things that they have over us.
And now they thought they had over us.
Well, yeah. And now the fact that we've got that, I think that's something going to be really exciting to showcase and implement moving forward.
I mean, definitely from a customer's point of view, you're probably not going to, it doesn't really affect you, but from our point of view, developing files and developing tunes for files, it allows us to get a much better result under all conditions a lot faster. Once we get that finished, we'll integrate it into all our firmwares.
Yep.
The next one we've got is our closed loop AFR control.
Yep, that's
which
cool.
is really awesome because it's any I think it's you'll have to correct me, any DPF model onwards.
Yeah, so anything that has the lambda sensor that's there for the DPF models, we can hijack obviously that sensor and have it too.
Yeah, so aftermarket ECUs, obviously, they run closed loop all the time, full time these days. Most like late model Euro stuff in petrol is closed loop all the time.
Yeah, I think some of the Bosch stuff in the diesel is actually closed loop as well.
Toyota, for some reason, doesn't do it.
Yeah, probably a little bit more agricultural as far as that goes. A little bit more simple.
What was the giveaway? The wind-up windows?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, I know they go to. So, like I said, they're a little bit boring. Yes, I agree with that.
But this will basically allow you guys to set a target air fuel ratio, and the control system will hit it every
it's
time.
Amazing. When you think of it like that, and that system in itself, that's pretty cool. So we're just increasing the drivability of the car. And I think that's what's important. That's what you'll feel. You'll notice the difference.
Can we touch on EGT control?
Yeah, sure.
That's the other thing that's coming is engine protection.
Yeah.
So we've literally spent the last probably month now starting to design code which will allow the Gen 3 ECUs and Gen 4 ECUs will now store maximum values for sensors.
Yep.
So you guys will be able to log in, have a look and go, hey, the boost hit this, the EGT's hit this, the coolant temp hit this.
Yep, so basically our own recording system essentially.
Yeah.
So that we'll be able to spot any issues pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And from there, we've obviously gone into EGT control. So there is no EGT protection from factory. So we're adding our own EGT protection, which will basically pull fuel, essentially to cool the cylinder down if the EGT starts to get hot. Coolant temp protection as well. We'll have an alarm on the dash that the driver will be able to see. Charge temp protection, so if the air temps get too hot, it'll be exactly the same thing.
Yep. Again,
these are features that Josh and I have played with forever and a day in aftermarket ECUs that we look at the Toyota stuff and go, oh, this is lacking, we need to add this.
Yep. I think that's really important. I think, especially when we touch on EGTs as well, or coolant temp, having a gauge, like I know a lot of people go like, oh, is that what that thing's for? I never look at it, you know what I mean? Like, and that's so common to hear that. And to have something flashing on the dash or having a warning come up and say, hey, you need to back off because you're getting hot, you know what I mean? You can catch a problem before it arises. And I guess that's what comes down to for value for customers, that knowing that they don't have to do anything, don't have to worry, they don't have to look at gauges. If something comes up, then there's a problem, and they can adjust to suit.
And the next thing I guess will be is the hidden secret project that we've been working on for the last couple of years together.
Yep.
Which is the app.
Yep.
So that's basically going to allow the user to flash their car at home.
Yeah, I think that's something that will be really cool. The thing I like about that, from a user point of view, I was really trying to imagine how a user would find that. And let's just say that they wanted an update, or there was something that they needed changed, or whatever it may be. They could pretty much request a file change or something to be changed, and we can literally make that modification, and they get a message on their phone and they can load it straight into their car. And I think that's powerful in the fact that, even if there's someone where they're stuck in the middle of the bush or there's a problem or something like that, that there's a support there that can offer so many different solutions for them. And so I think that's quite powerful.
And I think that's what, in terms of the next generation of Multimap, we're really trying to cater towards, is being able to offer a good solution regardless if you're on the dyno or not.
Yes.
And I think the closed loop AVR control is one of those things that we can see the air fuel in the car, we can see the boost pressure, and we can see it 12 times faster than anybody else can.
It wouldn't have been achievable with the factory logging.
No, it's definitely not. And I think that's one of the things
changed,
big time, is that you guys can actually do your job from a data log instead of having to have the dyno there and having to load the car a certain way and all the rest of it. There's no more of that anymore.
It's really funny now is that when we're using the dynos obviously as a safe place to do our testing, but a lot of our tuning for drivability is all done on the road, and we're just looking over data logging and making adjustments to suit, and that's where you get the feel. Making the power on the dyno, as we all know, that's 5 minutes. That's the easy part of the job. But getting drivability in and all that, that's where it becomes a lot more work involved. So. The app is definitely going to be a game changer. Again, I think we use that word twice now, but it will definitely be something that comes out that will be very, very cool for.
Yeah, and I guess the web is obviously an extension of the app as well. Like, it's a lot of people don't realise that we're already using and testing all the features and functions that the app will have.
Yes.
With the web in-house. With you guys have been using that for
Yeah, a long time now.
8-9 months now it's been live and it's been working and testing and all the rest of it.
But
I think the other cool thing as well will be, it's cool for me because that's something I'm interested in, is the custom CAN bus control. So we will be able to integrate any system that uses CAN bus messaging with the factory ECU from Gen 3 upwards. Gen 1 and Gen 2 will come at some point, but we'll be able to, like Josh said, additional inputs, additional outputs. If you want to control a fan, you can do that. If you want to control add another sensor into your ECU that you want to monitor and protect, we can do that. Like the Gen 3 platform is really flexible in terms of we've got a lot of space in the ECUs.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of control over the ECUs. It's really exciting from that point of view.
Gen 3 ECU. So for anyone that doesn't know anything about Gen 3 ECUs or Gen 4 ECUs, is that let's say at the start of 79 series, everything was Gen 1 or K-line, then Gen 1, and then N80 in the first series was Gen 2. And this is, we're now in what we call Generation 3 and 4. Gen 3 is, let's say, 8 times the file size of what's in a Gen 1?
Yeah, so 4 times.
4 times, yeah, sorry, 4
so we go
times
from a
Gen
1 megabyte
4,
file to 4 megabytes, and then
right.
Gen 4, which is what the Tundra is 8 megabytes.
Yeah. And so a whole lot of information, but as a lot of people are aware out there, they may have had new Hiluxes or 300 series, and anyone that's sort of starting to try and tune them, especially there's a lot of certain areas, you do not get a second chance, and it means that if you do the wrong thing, you end up with an ECU that's no more than a doorstop.
We saw that when we started just trying to turn off a simple trouble code. You try and turn off a simple DTC, and all of a sudden the ECU's not responding anymore.
It's, as much as it's high risk, it's exciting because there is that level of pressure when you're making a change, and we're all having a discussion going, hey, do you think this is going to brick an ECU? And Matt's going, it's 80% chance that it could. And we're looking at it going, what are we doing? Like, we're doing this, and next minute we press the button and write it in, and then it's all good. Or, yeah, but it's definitely gone the other way as well, where it hasn't been. Definitely. We're like, oh, man, this is a problem. Like, what are we going to do here? But I think that's probably why we like it, is because it is riskier. If you do something wrong, or you're not onto it, or you're exporting your project out and it's incorrect, or there's an issue there, you're gone. Done. You do not get a second chance.
Well, we were the first person to tune and flash a 300 series diesel, but we were probably also the first person to brick an ECU.
I'm pretty sure it was probably the same day.
Yeah. We did that on the 79 series, right?
We did. Yeah.
Because we managed to get an ECU before the
for the car release. Yep.
For the car release with 2.8, and I built the multi-mapping and all the rest of it.
Yep.
The first iteration didn't work. And then I changed a few little things to make it work, and all of a sudden, nope, it's not responding anymore, and that was it.
I think it's funny from when we were bricking ECUs, especially in the Gen 3 and Gen 4 platform, I think it became nearly second nature for us. It was like, oops, there's another one. I guess the important thing is that if we went back and reflected on how many ECUs, I think as a poll that's quite large. I don't know how many.
I have a box of literally 20 ECUs.
Right, and I reckon downstairs
we've
probably got, I'd say, 20 to 30 sitting downstairs. So yeah, we've definitely bricked a lot of ECUs, and they're not a cheap item to replace. And unfortunately, it's only new because at that time, secondhand wasn't available. We didn't have that option, so it was a new ECU.
We struggle to get ECUs.
Yep, we're trying to get them from overseas or anywhere we could get at the time. It's pretty important is that I guess nowadays we don't have that problems of systems that have been implemented. So
obviously we've developed recovery now for Gen 3.
Yep.
So all our files for all the tunes that we do now come with a recovery patch in them.
Yep.
Which is not something that Toyota offers. It's not something that you can even reflash with the Toyota system.
Yes.
We've actually had to go on to the effort of writing our own kernel to fast flash these ECUs, which has been an absolutely monstrous learning curve in itself.
That saves us a lot of time, doesn't it, Josh? Because I think when we talk about flashing, like the 300 series is nearly 10 minutes, and I think
so 4.5 minutes for a 300, and then 8 minutes for the Tundra.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I'm a really impatient person, so for me that's like the longest time in the world to write a change in.
We both get sidetracked.
Yeah,
well, it's even not even.
We've done a lot less social media in between.
A lot
more productive, way more productive.
Well, that's the other thing as well for me on the bench. I'm sitting there going, oh God, is this going to brick it? And I've got to sit there for 4.5 minutes to wait to see if it's going to brick the ECU or not.
Yeah. So I guess that now that you've basically given us a life ring where we get second chances now. So if we muck up, we're like, hey, cool, we've got a recovery and we're good to go again and with no problems.
And I mean, that in itself cost us 3 ECUs, just getting that to the point where it actually worked properly.
Yeah.
Other than the 2 ECUs that it cost us to do the fast flashing stuff, but now we can flash a tune in 10 seconds.
It's amazing. Like,
seconds.
I think I was doing some changes the other day on a 300 series, and I think the change was like 3 or 4 seconds. It was only a few byte changes,
one
and it
block.
was just instantly pulled straight through.
Makes R&D a lot quicker. And
Man, I think now when you go back to doing a 79 series and you have to wait a minute. You're like,
it feels
man, this
long.
is too long. Like, I can't wait this minute, you know. So it's definitely amazing for the Gen 3 stuff to be able to obviously do that. And that's something that, you know, we only do in-house, but how much it's helped us has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I remember one of Matt's concerns was, hey, this flash it's too quick. Somebody's not going to realise it's already flashed because it's only taken a couple of seconds.
It's so funny the other day.
I've done it.
The other day, I flashed the ECU. I come back. I didn't know if I flashed it or not, so I reflashed it because I was like, did I flash that? Because it happened so quickly. So downside, but I'll take that any day over the other. And so for anyone that doesn't know what flashing is, when we're talking about flashing, it's when we are writing the ECU. So we've modified the actual software in the binary file, and we're flashing it in using our EasyTune website.
And that was a challenge on Gen 4 as well with the Tundra and all the rest of it. We now have our fast kernel for that as well. So it's 10, 20 seconds to flash the file instead of 8 minutes. It's insane. The possibilities we're getting to, like just some of the patches we've done in the last couple of weeks, which people can't really see. We're talking custom CAN bus control and all the other stuff that we're going to be doing with these ECUs was unfathomable to us a few years ago. Where we're going to be in a few more years it's going to be wild.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's exciting. I'm super pumped for what the future holds. I mean, we love this stuff. So for us I think that's something about our jobs every day is because we're learning. Every day we learn, you know.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff we do that we can't tell anybody about either. Can't tell my mates what we've been doing, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is so good. Nobody else does any of this.
Yeah, and I guess it's unfortunate that we have to be, I guess, secretive somewhat between us with stuff that we do because, I mean, hey, there's a lot of ideas that float around and there's still a lot tied up in what we do. You know, it's definitely, pretty full on. I mean, we only have to mention, like the facility we're in right now is, you know, what we use for our R&D. A lot of people don't realise that, you know, we've got a dyno downstairs that it's not to the public, that, you know, we can come and put our own cars on and really start to understand the functionality and do it in a space and a place where we can learn and work from, where we're not getting interrupted, and there's, you know, and allows for that. But that does come at a cost as well, you know. So these are all things that why we can't sort of, you know, public release a lot of the different systems as of yet. But we have so many cool little projects coming. I think that moving forward, I'm super excited about. I know we've talked about it many times between us about the possibilities are endless, and I think we need people around us to ground us a lot, to pull us back, because we tend to go down a rabbit hole and we're all following head over heel after each other, and sometimes we get a little bit lost with our ideas. But once we finally get pulled back up and really start to focus on one idea, it comes through, and like time and time again we go, hey, we need to do this, cool, and we just keep going through until it's done. I think that's something that's really, that I'm proud of, the fact that we've got an awesome working connection and a team that we can do that. And it's not about anything else. It's just that common interest that keeps us moving forward with it. And I think that's something that's, you know, really
I think the best thing between the three of us is we each have a different way of looking at things. And we don't necessarily agree on everything at points. We have some heated discussions at times.
Yeah, just to touch on that, none of us are afraid to hurt the other person's feelings.
Opinions, yeah, because it's not about opinions. I guess it's not about feelings, I should say. Me and Josh, we will argue to the point, and I've lost a few hamburgers over the discussions, but, you know, the end of the day, well, hey, we're in this little world together, and it's exciting and it's fun. So we have that rapport, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, I think it's been an interesting development for all of us. Really, the amount of arguments we've had that this table does this, no, this table does that.
We all get very passionate. So
definitely.
even though Matt's my boss, I'll still tell him if he's being a shit bloke or his ideas is not cutting the mustard.
I guess, yeah, likewise. And I think that's pretty much coming to a wrap of things. I appreciate you guys coming in. And again, I appreciate both of you. As far as from a working relationship, I don't have much time to ever talk to you and tell you how much I really do appreciate our relationship. And it's something that I value very much. So, thank you for coming in and having a chat and putting your opinions on here. It means a lot to me.
No worries.
I look forward to the future and more arguments and conversations.
Definitely.
All right, so thanks for listening to our podcast. If you have any other questions, queries, leave them in the comment section. We'll have a look at them and like, share, subscribe, and thanks for staying tuned.